Hi, I'm Jessica Kurtz, commercial trainer with CASEIH. Today, I would like to walk you through new software features and functions for a model year 2026 and newer 2000 series planner on a Pro 1200 display. And we're going to be talking about one of the newer additions, the planter configuration screen. To access this planter configuration screen, you're going to first go to Run Screen 7 or the Universal Terminal portion of the Pro 1200 display. And in the Universal Terminal, I want to make sure that I've selected my Planter Universal Terminal, and then I'm going to access the menu through the 3-bar menu button. Once I'm inside of this menu, I'm going to go across the top here and I'm going to select the wrench. That's going to be where my setups are. So the Planter configuration option here is first one on the top. I'm going to open that up. Once I've opened up the configuration, you'll notice that there's a message here letting us know a little bit about what happens in this screen. Essentially what that's telling us is this screen should not be utilized on a regular basis. We shouldn't have to make a lot of changes to the configuration unless we've changed something physically on the planter. For example, if I've physically changed out my seed tubes from conventional seed tubes to high-speed speed tubes, I would need to go into my planter configurator and let the software know that we've made that change. Once I've read that message, I can hit enter and it'll open up this configurator. You'll notice on the sidebar here, we have several different categories that we'll need to make sure that we access to make our configurations. Okay? And you'll also notice a couple of things about the configuration screen. First, let's look at the different colors. You'll see that there are blue and white. Those are going to be buttons that we are able to configure and edit. If there's something that's grayed out, that is something that is not configurable or may have already been passed through from the planter software, from the implement itself. The other thing you'll notice here, we have the question mark. If I am unsure about some of these areas, what it's asking, right, I can click on that question mark and it'll bring up a little description of what we're looking for there and where that information can be found. Looking here at frame first. The frame, okay, we're going to look at our total row count, our spacing, just to confirm that those are correct. The PDM fuse orientation, okay, that's something that we'll have to check physically on the planter. Okay, right now it says invalid, so I'm going to go over here on this particular configuration. It's on the front. Okay, and then the sticker orientation as well, okay, facing up. Right? You'll notice down below, okay, that we have these grayed out areas that we can't edit, and I'm getting a little bit of an error here. Okay, that's letting me know, right, remember we have the split can on these new 2026 planners. So after we've set our PDM fuse orientation, we're then going to look at our CAN bus. So we have a split CAN on model year 2026 and newer early riser planners. What that means, okay, is that we have to double check that our rows are set on CAN A and CAN B. So it's a split CAN, meaning we have it split down the middle. So I've got a 24-row planner. So I've got 12 rows on CAN A. When I click on that CAN A button, that blue configurable button, it brings up this UT input, and now I can switch to CAN B, and I can confirm how many rows are on CAN B. So in this case, right, I'm going to change this to 12 so that we have a split. Now you'll notice then that my pop-up went away, that there was an error. So this is set up to help give you guidance along the way as well. Okay? Next is markers. I'm going to install markers because this particular configuration I have here has markers. Okay? Once we've finished up with frame, okay, I've made edits to any of my blue and white areas. Everything else is grayed out. I can then switch to rows. Looking at rows, okay, the first thing I'm going to look at is my row unit downforce. Okay? Do I have spring? Do I have hydraulic? Do I have pneumatic? So I'm going to use the arrows to swap between and select my row unit downforce configuration. On this particular case, I'm going to go hydraulic. Okay? Down below then, we see a couple different options for what can be put on our row unit. So the V drive, okay, the blue button is going to tell me what I'm editing at that time. So the V drive, okay, I can hit all rows and you'll see check marks. I can use the arrows at the bottom to ensure that I have all of those rows checked. If I don't have V-drive on any of those particular rows for any reason, I can uncheck that specific row. Okay? The last piece here is my load cells. Okay, you'll notice that those have already populated, right? But I want to make sure that I let the software know that there are load cells on every row, or the rows that is configured with. Next, I'm going to go over here on the side, and I'm going to go to what this planner is equipped with. So from an equipment standpoint, okay, planner speed sensor, okay, none. Okay, there could be wheel, right? If you have that configured. In this case, we have none. Alternator, okay, you'll notice here that there's different options and different sizes. So with 2160s larger than 24 rows, okay, there's going to be a 330 amp alternator. I have here a 2160 24 row 30. Okay, so I have on this configuration, okay, that 240 amp alternator. Okay, but if I had a larger 2160, okay, I would have to change that to that 330 amps. After we have taken care of the planar speed sensor, okay, and alternator, then we're going to go down through and let the software know what else is configured on this planner. So I've got bulk fill, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that shows blue, that it's selected and it is installed. PTO pump, my steering, okay, if I have any active steering. Okay, my carrier, I want to make sure that I change to tracks. If you've got a wheeled planner, you'd want to make sure that says wheeled, right? If I've got working lights installed, bulk fill, okay. My compressor, if you're utilizing a 2020 display, that can be noted here as well. And then your pneumatic system, so your cleaners, right, and your residue managers. So we're going to go and your closers. So I have pneumatic cleaners here, but I have spring closers, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that as uninstalled. Next, okay, we'll go to our application. So on this particular configuration, if you look here, the green bar means that that is selected. So if I had granular, right now that option is not selected, so I'd want to make sure that I select that and I get the green bar above the type of fertilizer that is installed. Okay, in this case, I've got liquid, right? I've got a liquid system, and I need to make sure that I indicate that that's installed. You'll notice that when I did that, okay, it allows me to configure other areas on this screen. If that is uninstalled, it'll gray out some different pieces. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that that's installed. Okay, and I can select the sections that are installed. Okay, and if I have individual row monitoring, flow monitoring, if that's the configuration, I can also indicate that here and what rows I have that on, whether I have it on all rows, odd rows, or even rows. Okay, or if I have none, I'll just make sure I have none and none of that selected. In this case, I do not have the flow monitoring, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that unchecked. The last portion here, okay, is going to be our measurements. Okay, this is going to be the different locations, just to make sure that when we start to do our precision planning, that everything is correct and the software knows the location of all of our planner pieces. So, okay, you'll see that these will populate from the implement. You can go ahead and leave those unless there's been changes made. Okay, the hitch type, you want to make sure that you select the appropriate hitch type. In this case, I do have a drawbar. And again, we've got a question mark there. If you're unsure of what any of those measurements are, you can go ahead and open that up, and it will walk you through what you're looking for, along with the drawing here as well. Once you've worked your way through all of the categories on the right-hand side and made your configuration selections, now we want to save any changes that we might have made. Or maybe we don't want to save changes and we had gone in to check the configuration and make sure that it is correct. Okay? To do that, I'm going to go to the top right portion of my screen and hit X. Then that's going to ask me to save. Right? In this case, I have made changes, so I'm going to hit save. Okay? And it'll notify me that the setup has been changed. Okay? And then the planner will restart. So it's going to go ahead and restart. You'll notice that it will run its restart automatically and get the software set and ready to go with that configuration. Once you've entered the universal terminal screen in your Pro 1200, you'll notice that when you select the planner, there's this entry screen. So this is some safety precautions, but it will also not allow you into the editable portions of and the configurable portions of the universal terminal, okay, until it's loaded. And then when you see the blue and white accept button, okay, you can click that. Once I've hit accept, now you'll notice that we're inside of our planter UT screen. You'll notice here too, I might have to wait a little bit just until everything is totally done. It'll give you a message that lets you know that it's not quite loaded everything yet. Once the software has loaded and we're into the universal terminal, we can see now that there are a couple differences between when we did not have the planner configuration complete and now that the planner configuration is complete and saved. So for example, we didn't have any liquid control, we didn't have any bulk fill control show up here within our run screens. As we roll through my compressor, okay, we have different control areas for that as well. Those have now all populated within our universal terminal for our planter after we've done the configuration and let the software know that it should be looking for those things and gathering data and able to make adjustments there. Once the planter has repopulated in the universal terminal and you're able to interact with those screens, you've completed the planner configuration process. For more information, contact your local CASEIH dealer.